whenever you pop Aqua Tail, it gives you a 60% attack speed increase. And so you'll start attacking faster. Scope Lens just won't read on the second hit, but it will only read on the first and third. So if you wait just a slight bit in between your second cast, you'll be able to get your Scope Lens on all 3 of your hits. It gives you a 12% amplifier onto your crit damage and an extra 75% of your attack stat as additional damage. I believe that Azumarill is pretty underrated, not just in the current meta, but in general overall. The mod has always been viewed as very weak, poorly designed, just due to the fact of its ability huge power. The interactions of Whirlpool and Aqua Tail having extended hitboxes more designed for hitting multiple enemies in a team fight. That being said, in team fights, Azu has better ways to damage crowds through Water Pulse while keeping yourself alive through the sustain of Aqua Tail and Whirlpool if you do end up hitting multiple enemies. The mod has really good self-sustain, mobility through the move speed that you get if you do choose Play Rough, a mini dash if you choose Water Pulse, and ult that synergizes perfectly with its kit through the flat AD that it adds, and the fact that it sticks you onto a target, allowing you to easily follow up.
As an Azu player, do you feel like that Azu can be easily countered? If so, how do you work around it?
Oh, it definitely has counters. 3 very, very hard checks in particular, and a few select soft checks. The main ways that I play around the counters is just by remembering cooldown timers. I'm virtually just a breathing version of Unite DD, so the moment I see something like a Mean Look, a Gravity, Sing, Feint, a Gyarados ult, anything that gives Unstoppable, provides big CC that's a hindrance to Azumarill's playstyle, or gives straight invulnerability, I'm always making sure that I have the mental notes of the game clock and when they'll have the moves back. And that way, I know that I can go in at that exact moment. Or maybe I need to wait a little bit longer because the cooldown's about to come right back up.
How do you use Azu to counter some of the more relevant picks like Miraidon, Buzzwole, our favorite Glaceon?
In this meta specifically, at least for solo queue fight, I'm either seeing extremely squishy comps or extremely bulky comps. For the comps that rely on squishier targets like Miraidon, Glaceon, Guardy, and the comp is entirely made up of things that need to be chased down, Whirlpool is probably the better option in most of those games because they're so squishy that the moment that you get on top of them with Azumarill, they're absolutely gone. And I can't always guarantee that Aqua Tail will hit, especially if they have something like an eject button up or a Miraidon ult that gives Unstoppable, especially in combination with an eject button Glaceon passive. Moves like that allow them to have a brief moment to escape. They can dodge the hitbox of Aqua Tail, but if I'm able to kill them before I need to use another move, that's whenever I'll opt out for Whirlpool since it's a continuous stream of damage. If I'm playing into bulkier comps with Clefable, Umbreon, Trevenant, I'm without a doubt playing Aqua Tail. It's a more mechanic-intensive build that will keep you alive longer into those bulkier comps that are able to immediately burst you down. And the moment that you hit level 10 with your big power spike on Aqua Tail Plus, you get 0.8 seconds off of both of your cooldowns, Water Pulse and Aqua Tail respectively. However, whenever playing Whirlpool into the squishier comps, it mainly just depends on what carries they're playing specifically that I'll opt my second move for. If they have evolutions with passives that need to be broken by this team, or they just have like general bulk to them, I'm going to play Water Pulse so that I have a ranged way to break the evolution passives, on top of potentially being able to break multiple of them since Water Pulse spreads. But if they're playing into ADC heavy comps, or they have characters that don't really like to be stunned in the moment, characters like Buzzwole, I think that Play Rough is without a doubt a better option since it allows me to interrupt their abilities or their autos, and it lets me stick onto them and burst them down, especially in the late game once you get Play Rough Plus. it gives you a second off of the cooldown as you move up.
Is there anything that could help Azu in its current state?
Truthfully, the only thing that I really wanted for Azumarill was an extra slot in draft for bans, and that was something that we did end up getting with the latest patch. Whatever draft was added to rank, and so it allows you to take out more of the problematic matchups for Azumarill. If you want to just have off of the board, and I mean, I don't think that Azumarill struggles into too many things. I have heard games where people will tell me, oh, this game is going to be rough, even with some of the hardest counters and EX mons on them. But once you get comfortable enough on a character, you know how to work around your bad matchups. In the case of Azumarill, where most people don't play against it often, they tend to underrate what it can actually do in the right hand.
How do you feel that Azu compares to some of the more relevant picks in its role?
Funnily enough, I think there are only 7 all-rounders that you could reliably say are better than it if we're talking about the role specifically as a classification that the game goes off of. However, most of these all-rounders are characters that you would run in the jungle. Characters like Mewtwo X, Metagross, Blaziken, and Mimikyu are particularly top laners, per se. You can't play them in top lane, but in terms of full-on competitive play that you see these mons in, the jungle is more often than not the role that they're going to be put into. Zacian, Buzzwole, Lucario are the only true top lane all-rounders that Azu could struggle into if you lane normally. But there's an easy clear to where you can walk into lane at 940 at level 4 with the Azumarill, so that you have Aquatail making the matchups that you would lose into winning matchups or even matchups in the case of Zacian. You can make the argument for other all-rounders to get better than Azumarill than just the 7 that I listed, but if anything, I think that Machamp is the only all-rounder that you could truly make an argument for. That being said, in the end game, they're both looking for the same thing, a good ult engage on a majority of the team, but with Azu being able to instantly walk into lane with a big power spike, having great sustain that other all-rounders just don't have, at that point in the game especially, I just think that it's too much of a difference.
What's the absolute worst thing about Azu?
Oh, play rough, hands down. The move, it has a niche, but every other move in its kit is just infinitely better than play rough. The damage on the move is extremely low, despite being buffed about 3 times since its release. The movement speed is nice, but there's so much CC in the game, not just in the game, but in the meta alone. It not having hindrance resistance or unstoppable like Machamp has on Seismic Toss, it feels clunky, and the stun alone is just, it's just bad with all things considered. For a move that just latches you onto the enemy team, it doesn't give you an escape immediately after latching on like Pikachu can with Full Tackle. A 0.75 second stun, it's just not worth it.
If you could rework Azu in any way, how would you?
Alright, so the thing that I would do is you have to touch play rough. Like, that move, despite being buffed as many times as it has, it's never been enough. And if they only keep touching the damage on the move, I don't think that it will ever be enough. I think the damage that you get from the rest of Azu's kit is fine. I don't think they need to go and touch, like, say its flat attack stat or the damage scaling on any of its other moves. But play rough, it desperately needs another buff to its damage and another effect. I've had these 3 ideas for a good while now. I think that if just one of them was added, that play rough would just be in an infinitely better place. The stun either needs to be doubled to match the stun of Volt Tackle, which Volt Tackle's a 1.4 second stun, so doubling it to make it 1.5, it's virtually just Volt Tackle. You don't get an escape option out of. Maybe give the move unstoppable while it's active, or it needs damage reduction. while the move is active.
Do you feel that buffing Azu would make it more relevant than other all-rounders? Why or why not?
I think that buffing anything outside of play rough is an extremely risky proposition. It's in a place where if someone that hard one-tricks the character could easily do something with it, but buffing its damage or buffing the effects on its moves so that people that aren't like extremely well-versed on the character are going to be able to just like clean roll games. I don't know. It's really scary. The balance of Azumarill is all on its moves. It's passive. It's been touched once, and I think that it really helped out the Pokemon. But a lot of the scalings on Azumarill's moves look very low at a first glance. But it's entirely balanced around its passive. It heals a ton on hit. It has low scaling, but it has ways to amplify its damage through a Blissey ult that will give you an X attack buff for 6 seconds. A tree ult that will amplify your autos based on tree's attack stat. Or a Mewtwo X ult that will lower the enemy's team's defense by 30% for 3 seconds. If the actual damage ratios or flat damage from Azu's attack stat were to be increased, I think that it would just lead to a really awful time for people playing great games. I think that where it's at in the current meta, it's completely fine. It just needs very small tweaks to play rough and maybe giving it a slight addition to its base defenses.
What's a secret tech that most people don't know about Azu?
Here's the big question. The one trick that Azu has that I don't see many, if at all any, Azumarill players use is manipulating the internal cooldown of Aqua Tail from the moment that you get the move. So the way that Aqua Tail works is that it'll change your next 3 autos into a more long-range version of the move, and if an auto isn't used within 5 seconds, the move will revert back to your base auto attacks, and the move has a 7-second internal cooldown. So if you pop Aqua Tail and say there aren't any enemies close to you, you're not getting into a fight that very moment, Aqua Tail will just go back on cooldown. You won't have it for a few seconds, and then say, oh, the enemy team speedster just jumped out of a bush and now I don't have my button. Well, you see, there's a very easy solution for this. You can just stand still, and as long as you use Aqua Tail in the air, even if you don't hit anything, it will move Aqua Tail to the second part of its boosted attack. And while that's happening, you have another 5 seconds to use the second part of Aqua Tail, but the internal cooldown of the move is still lowering. So by the time the 5 seconds has elapsed, your Aqua Tail's already back again because 10 seconds have already gone by, and the move's on a 7-second cooldown. So you're able to have your second hit of Aqua Tail and your third hit of Aqua Tail, and immediately have Aqua Tail back up for fights. And so if people see you use the third hit of Aqua Tail in a fight, and like that's all that they've seen of you, they're gonna assume that, oh, well, they don't have Aqua Tail up again. And then you hit them with another Aqua Tail set of rotations, you just full wipe a team because your cooldowns are always up. And so throughout the entirety of the game, you'll just see me stop in random places, middle of nowhere, no one around, and I'll just swing at the air. And it probably looks very weird for people just like in general, and that I'm probably just trolling. I'm just swinging at nothing. I'm fighting my demons out here. But it's very similar to a character from League. And once I started playing League a few months back, I saw Riven, and she can do the exact same thing with her Q. Once I saw that, I decided to try it once I came back to Unite again. And sure enough, that was a secret sauce that Azumarill needed. And every other Azumarill that I've played against or that I watch, they don't take it into account. And I've spoken with other top laners, top players in general, and it's a small bit of information that some people just don't have. On top of that, whenever you're playing Scope Lens with Aqua Tail, which is normally what you're going to be playing, since that's a pretty recommended item for most people whenever you play Aqua Tail. You want to slightly delay your hits in between Aqua Tail so that you'll hit your pops of Scope Lens onto a target that you wouldn't get if you just instantly cast your Aqua Tail, because Scope Lens goes on a 1 second cooldown, but whenever you pop Aqua Tail, it gives you a 60% attack speed increase. And so you'll start attacking faster. Scope Lens just won't read on the second hit, but it will only read on the first and third. So if you wait just a slight bit in between your second cast, you'll be able to get your Scope Lens on all 3 of your hits. And sometimes that's just the small bit of damage that you need, since it gives you a 12% amplifier onto your crit damage and an extra 75% of your attack stat as additional damage.
And one last question. Do you have any secret item builds or emblem builds? Or what are they used for?
So this season specifically, I've been looking at the Charging Charm and Razor Claw. And Razor Claw is probably the main thing that people are gonna raise eyebrows at. But whenever you look at the item itself, it's a very, very good item on characters that have high attack stats, because it will give you 20 flat damage on top of 50% of your attack stat. And it has a 3 second buffer. So once you cast a move, even if you don't use Aqua Tail immediately, you have that extra pop of damage for 3 seconds. And as I mentioned before, once you hit level 10, Aqua Tail will start lowering your cooldown timers by 0.8 seconds for every tip or hit of Aqua Tail. And so you're getting those Razor Pups very consistently. Since you have so much cooldown reduction in your kit, it adds so much extra damage onto your autos. And Azumarill's an auto attack based character. So after messing around with it a little bit, I've actually really started to like the item a lot on Azumarill. Not to mention the fact that Aqua Tail still counts as a melee based attack. So whenever you hit someone with Aqua Tail, it will still give you the slow that Razor Claw has, on top of the 20% slow that you get. Not the 20% slow, my bad. It's a 40% slow on Water Pulse for 2 seconds. And that can bounce between the entire enemy team. And so it just gives you a little bit more, slows, and it allows you to play your range of Aqua Tail to make sure that you're always getting the hitboxes that you want while keeping your cooldowns up. Charging Charm, it works in a very similar way to Razor Claw, to where once it's charged, it will give the next action that you cast an extra pop of damage, but it's not just limited to your auto attacks. It can increase the damage of, say, your ult or Water Pulse bounces. And whenever you combine the 2 items together, if they're both up at the same time, it gives such an extra pop of damage, especially after you pop your ult. Because in the late game, once you're level 13, you pop your ult, you get a 120 flat attack added to you for 5 seconds. 125 attack if you're level 14. And then 130 attack just for free, just for popping your ult for 5 seconds if you hit level 15 in the late game. Just combining it with the flat percentages that you get from Razor Claw and Charging Charm, it increases your survivability and your damage output by a lot more than you would expect.
I have to ask, who are you and why do you know so much about the game?
Well, on the topic of who I am specifically, since I'm definitely a new name to a lot of people in the community, my name is Starlight, or you can just call me Star for short if you would so prefer. I used to be a competitive top laner for 2 years, consistently making it one round away from top 60, making me someone that has a good bit of knowledge of not just the game in general, but top lane specifically. And so I have a good bit of fundamentals in the game, if you would so say. That being said, I'm just a girl that loves playing her funny blue bunny. Azumarill's a character that brings me the most joy whenever I play the game. No other character that I've played, competitively or in solo queue, is as fun to me as Azumarill is. It's a character that looks very easy to play on the surface, but is actually kind of mechanically complex, and there's a lot that goes into the character, and the more information that you have on the character, the more truly broken the character actually seems, and something that I enjoy, because whenever I win my games, I truly feel like I deserve to win my games because I just have an information gap that other people don't have.
I felt that. When people take your Azu when you're on ladder, what Pokemon do you find yourself playing?
Well, you see, it's funny that you say that, because I'm currently sitting at almost 400 games on Azumarill in this season with a 61% win rate on the character. So I would say that most people are not taking this character from me because as of today, since it's a Monday, Unite API actually updates and it shows the pick rate of the characters. It's currently sitting at a 4.5% pick rate. So I'd say that most people aren't really playing the character. So in terms of what I'm playing this season, it's Azumarill.
What are you hoping to achieve out of Pokemon Unite?
I'm primarily just looking to be a better player, not just in this game, but in MOBAs in general, since there's a lot of information that you can actually take from a 10-minute game and apply to, say, a 30-minute, 40-minute game in League. And, I mean, not only that, but finding people that I can vibe with, getting good games, share a laugh with. It's something that I'm looking forward to the most, and hopefully, since I am a new name and all, hopefully I can build a community one day myself and be able to hang out with people and share the knowledge that I have of the game. I know this game more than a person should legally be allowed to know this game, and so I love trying to just share my knowledge with as many people as I can. And, you know, the game's more fun whenever games are closer. And so games are only going to get closer if more people have information. And so it's not just as fun as a player, but as a spectator whenever the games are closer, whenever people are better, whenever people have more knowledge of the game. And I'd love to make that a possibility someday.
Where can we find you, Star?
So I'm decently new to the whole social media and content creation thing. However, you can find me on Twitter at YlisseanStar or on Twitch at YlisseanStarlight. I work mostly until 10 p.m. EST, Sundays through Wednesdays. So on those days, streams would end up starting around 11 p.m. EST and maybe being a few short hours. And Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays are days that I have virtually entirely to myself. So those would be days that I would have longer streams and be able to share more of my information that I have of the game. And I'd love to teach what I can whenever I'm live. And so at a certain point, I may actually look into taking some of the games that I do play while I'm live and turning those into short form videos on YouTube that more people could be accessible to watch at a later time.